Hi, welcome to the Value Script. We are back live. How am I doing? What? What are we?
It's got a clap.
You gotta let me wait for the echo. Yeah. I heard a clap. I got excited. Let's go.
I got the clap.
Oh, you got the clap, so we're good to go. Oh, right. Oh, now I'm on the blooper reel. Great. All right. Fantastic. All right. As you see, we're here in studio with our lovely Meredith.
Hi.
I just stopped calling you a guest. I think you should just be the co-host.
Sounds good.
Especially with some of the feedback we've been getting that we want to get into in just a second. Right after I introduce the mysterious voice behind the curtain that everybody has started asking about. Who is that voice?
Justin.
This is
the producer.
Is Justin Bush, our producer, and he will be faceless.
I haven't done the 75 hard yet, so I'm staying off camera.
I need to do the 75 hard. Speaking of that, Justin, you know, they say the camera adds 10 pounds, right? I've watched the video a lot, and I think the camera definitely added 10 pounds to me.
Did it?
And it did not add the same to Meredith. So I'm wondering, do we need to switch cameras? Because I think not only did I get my 10 pounds, but I got her 10 pounds too, compared to how I look when I'm looking in the mirror. Is how I think I come across on my podcast. What are your thoughts on that?
That is not true. It's all good.
Oh, man.
All good. You look great.
Well, what kind of feedback are you guys getting with this podcast so far?
Good. We've gotten a lot of feedback, and most of it's been great. In fact, I've only had one negative thing that was expressed, and coincidentally enough, I think that was by maybe a family member.
Yeah, who are dealing with their own struggles. It makes it hard, I think, to look at yourself in a certain light and realize that there might be some things to fix. So,
anyways, if you figure out who you are, and I still love you, and I'm still here for you anytime. Do you want to lead out, babe? We've had some great feedback. Hey, so we have a few comments that have resonated with some of you, and by the way, we really appreciate the feedback that we received, and we appreciate we've had a couple ideas for things that people have asked for Meredith and I to discuss and how that's affected us in our lives. So we definitely want to do that. In fact, we have a range of topics we want to do moving forward. So it's great because one idea kind of feeds into another idea. And we've been married long enough that we've experienced almost everything. I don't know. I mean, I don't know about everything, but a lot. We've experienced a lot of things in our marriage together, in our relationship together. Plus, we've known each other for so much longer than probably most other couples. We have an interesting relationship dynamic. So it gives us a lot of experience with things. But one of the comments that really I thought was powerful, we'll jump into, is a friend of mine reached out and he said he asked if we would do an episode on being a good partner and a good companion in marriage. And it's for both spouses, being a good partner and a companion. And he had the context of they had a baby recently. The baby was born early, not tremendously early, but early. And because of that, they had incurred some additional expenses than they had planned on. He has a side hustle that he does in addition to his regular job. And in order to meet their current needs and help pay off the extra expenses, he's been spending extra time working outside the home in his side hustle after his current, full-time job. And he said what's happening is there's resentment starting to get built up. He is starting to feel like he is not the hard work that he's doing is not being recognized and not necessarily appreciated. At least I think according to the sacrifice he's giving. If I didn't necessarily ask for context there, but thinking of the context in my own life, that would be how that would feel. Like I feel I'm putting so much effort in, I'm putting all this hard work in, and I don't feel that it's being recognized or appreciated. And then on the other side of that, his wife is feeling like he is out of the home and she is struggling with doing this all on her own, having just had given birth, having a new baby that was born premature, and the complications with that. And she largely feels alone in doing that. And so what do as I described that to you, Meredith, and as we talked about that situation, what are some of your thoughts on that?
So we've had a lot of conversations about this exact thing. You having those same feelings of feeling like we were starting to be divided in our marriage and in the things that we were doing. You were certainly throwing yourself into school and business and work and building your practice. And I was home with the kids and managing all of their activities and stuff. So I can totally see how that starts to feel that way. One thing that was, I don't know, for me, when we were going through all of that, and you described the way that you had times when you felt just that way, feeling like you were kind of alone in providing for our family and going to school and all the responsibilities that you were taking on. And from my perspective, I felt like we were always doing it together. We just had different roles. So for me, I didn't feel that pull apart in our relationship at all. I just felt like we had different roles. We were doing different things. And so for me, that wasn't hard, but I know for a lot of people it is, and it's real. I think the best thing is to really try to listen to your spouse and try to understand where they're coming from, even if you can't relate to it. Like we've had so many times when you would talk to me about what you were feeling and the emotions that you had, and I didn't feel that at all. And so it was hard for me to relate to it or find validity there. Couldn't say that word for a minute, but it was real. I knew that it was real for you. So whether I felt it or not, I needed to recognize that was real and it needed to be addressed in some way.
I appreciate you said that because it was real for me. And it was obvious, at least from my point of view, I felt as though it was obvious that you did not see that. Because I guess I should not say that, because that fed into triggering my attachment wounding and some unhealed trauma, really. So I guess I did not recognize that you felt that way, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of unintended messages and unintended consequences, right? But I was trying to find a scripture in Hebrews. I wasn't trying to be totally rude while you were speaking, but I was just trying. Maybe I should just actually get the Bible app out and look there. I was just trying to do a Google search cheat. Anyway, easy way to find scriptures on the fly. If you remember what it says, just Google it real quick. It'll pop up usually. So, I think over time, certainly that changes. One of the kickers for us, for me, I remember when we just had gotten out of residency, we were looking at homes, and our realtor was somebody who had really established herself as a very prominent businesswoman. She was a very successful realty practice. She really incredible, classy woman. We've known her our whole lives. She was always just a wonderful woman and a powerful woman. And she was able to create a very good business for herself and had a great mind. And so we were going through homes, looking and talking about things. And I expressed how I'd like you to be involved with me somewhat on the business side of things. And her advice to you is, she looked at Meredith and said, my advice to you is don't get involved. And I was just like, thanks. What the heck? What the heck? I'm paying you to be here. You're supposed to, really no. But it really I kind of had to do a gut check on that moment, because I thought, well, here's this woman that I totally respect and think she's amazing. And she is. She's amazing. I do respect her. She's phenomenal. And she just told my wife the opposite advice from what I had hoped she had said. And I'm sure she has reasons for that. And essentially we kind of took it as I took care of the business and that kind of thing, and the things outside the house, and you kind of took care of things inside the home. But at some point I don't know if you felt this, Meredith, but I felt that we started to kind of go different directions.
I did not feel that at all.
Yeah.
Because I felt like we were going different directions, but that was part of our family. Like, I didn't feel like it was dividing us from our family. I just felt like we had different roles.
Right.
And so, and that's, when we were on the tractor for hours before we got married and we talked about our roles in our marriage and what we wanted and goals. And my mindset was always, I wanted to be home. I wanted to be able to take care of my children and support, my husband in that way. And have you be the provider, and certainly you had put yourself in a position where you could provide for our family very well, and so there wasn't a need for me to work outside of the home. But I think what was difficult is just in your mind that became like a dividing factor, where for me it just wasn't. Right. I just felt like.
I found that scripture I was looking for. It's actually not in Hebrews. It's in Mark chapter 10 and verses 8 and 9 says, verse 7 and 8 says, "For this cause shall a man leave his father and his mother and cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. So then they are no more twain, but one flesh." And I kind of think that's how we approached our marriage, really. Like, we realized we're going to play different roles, but together, we're coming together as one flesh, one union and one marriage unit. Mm-hmm. Is that a word? Is that a term, marriage unit?
Sure. It is now.
There's definitely a role for a unit in marriage, but is there? Anyway, so, and I guess where I feel like it started to kind of divide from my point of view is I started going to continuing education and, with a lot of those CE courses, there were some dynamic speakers like Doug Fields that was there, and he was speaking about marriage relationships and dating and romance and those types of things, and how he had to have a drinking problem to be able to function as a decent father and husband after work. So his solution to the work stress, having no energy at the end of the day, or having, basically being emotionally just burned out from all the emotions you had to put into your day, he would stop and he would indulge in his drinking problem. So he would bring the day's newspaper to the Taco Bell on the corner by his house, and he would drink the large Diet Pepsi, and he would refill it about 4 times and read the paper. And that helped him unwind and recharge. And that's a lot of caffeine. If you think of all the ounces, if you refilled that 24, 32 ounce cup 4 times and drank all that, it was about a gallon of Diet Coke going home. And he felt recharged and refreshed, and he could go in then. And then his kids didn't get the emotional scraps that are left over, and his wife didn't get the emotional scraps that were left over. And I certainly know that after I come home after working with other people's children all day long and other, just the dynamics of the work environment, I'm emotionally spent. Sometimes it's a 20-minute drive home from work, and sometimes it needs to be 30, so that I can have enough Metallica therapy or whatever. But that road sometimes is therapeutic as long as it's not inducing road rage.
And we've talked about too how good it is to recognize that you might need that space. You might need that time, that alone time, to just unwind and just kind of let go of the day's stresses before you jump into your family.
So let's speak to that. Like, because for years I felt like I just need a few minutes once I get home, but I felt horrible asking for it, because I felt like if I ask for it, it's going to make my wife feel like, well, why do you want time alone from? Don't you want to be with me? You've been gone all day. Don't you want to be with me? And so I felt like guilty asking for alone time. Or my favorite way to decompress for me was I'd come home, I'd go to our gym that was in a garage outdoors, outside the house, but it was inside a garage. Anyway, and I'd come in there and the kids wanted to see me. And I just wanted to listen to loud music and throw weights around and act like I was John Cena for a while, but that reminded me of the White Rock comment. Anyway, we might need to tell that story too someday, but that was funny. But so when the kids are out there, I feel like I can't be as crazy. I can't be as loud because I don't want them to see me like a total animal. And I turn the music down because I don't want it to hurt their ears. And then like I'm doing bench press and Briggs running underneath the bench press, the weights, you know, and I'm thinking, man, if he hits this barbell, I'm going to die and he might too, you know? So all these things kind of frustrated my ability, and I just didn't feel like I could ask for, I just need some time. What's sort of constructive way to approach that conversation?
Well, I think understanding the reasons why, and just having an honest conversation of like, I do love you. I do want to be with you. But at the same time, I want it to be healthy and good. And I don't want to give you my stressed out, you know, like you said, I can't remember the phrase that you used, but it was perfect to describe it. Just what's left over at the end of the day, just the, you know, emotional scraps, yeah, that you can give your spouse. And really, like, I know this goes both ways, like, because, you know, you spoke to having a long day at work and coming home and how that feels, and, you know, kids are excited and hyper and it's hard, you know, sometimes. And
kids are perfect. You can't be hard, babe. Come on. You have our beautiful little children. They're perfect.
They're pretty close to it, but yeah, no, we've got our crazy moments for sure. but and I know for moms too, when you're, you know, home all day with kids, especially young kids, and you're exhausted. And so then your husband comes in the door and it's hard to, you know, be that excited, put together.
I just thought real quick, you said her husband comes in the door. What did our counselor say that guys want? What are the 3 things guys want? So when a guy comes in the door,
food.
This is very oversimplified and it is stereotyping, and I don't want you fact checkers busting my chops on this, okay? A lot of people we know feel this way. Not everybody. Can't make it general. People can't handle that truth these days. But they want, so a guy walks in the door. Food. He wants food,
sex,
a clean house, and a blowjob. Right? That's what I'm quoting our counselor. But that was what he said. It's like, Meredith, it's not that hard. Guys want food, clean house, sex, you know, and blowjobs. But anyway, that's and so how much, you know, you're already exhausted, and I think it's an important conversation to have.
And giving each other that grace, and you really have to kind of step outside your own feelings and the emotions that you're having, and really try to look at your spouse and what kind of day have they had? Like, what can I do to put things in place so that when we see each other, we're ready to see each other and have it be good. And
so you mentioned giving each other some grace, and I want to come back to that, which just kind of goes full circle there, but grace. So what do you mean by giving each other some grace? I thought that was a very profound thing to say.
I think realizing if your husband comes home and he's grouchy and on edge, and like, it can be easy to try or to just feel those emotions and react back. But if you can kind of take a breath and think about, well, maybe why is he short right now? Maybe it has nothing to do with me. We haven't been together all day. Maybe, you know, and that can be hard sometimes, but just,
I think
just
so.
try to be,
that you're talking about, like, if I want nothing to do with you, that can be hard. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying if you come home grouchy and stressed and
short, that has nothing to do with you.
Short with, you know,
right,
the kids or me or whatever.
And I think on the same side, like for me, like I need to be understanding of, well, if I come home grouchy and stressed, I can't really expect her to want to take off all her clothes and be romantic if I'm presenting that, because that's not the sexiest way to seduce your wife. I've learned doesn't really work.
Doesn't work.
Although I still act that way a lot and get frustrated by it. But I think that's pretty profound. I really have tried to come home with a better mindset and be more recharged. And the easiest way to do that is really just to be on top of your game, have your daily routine dialed in, because the more disciplined you are with excess, with your diet, with exercise, with feeding your brain positive information, the happier you're going to be and the more grounded you're going to be. And the better you're going to be able to handle that long day and be able to handle the stress of the day and be able to come home and still be the rock star dad. I mean, think of who do you want to have walk through the door when you're replaying the cameras inside your home, if you have them. And if you don't, just think about it. Like, how do you want to remember you yourself walking through the door? Most of the days, I probably don't want to see the crap show that happens when I walk through the door, because I quite often am grouchy and tired.
But you know what though? Like 75 Hard was a game changer on that. Like, just on that, speaking to how having those good habits in place changes your mindset. Because I mean, I saw day and night difference with you in that after the first 3 weeks. First 3 weeks were
I had to work through my withdrawals. I had a drinking problem too. It wasn't the same. It wasn't the same
hard.
Diet Coke.
Right. 75 hard is hard anyway, just doing all of those things at once. But then you throw that on top of it, and it was.
Your first 3 weeks, you're exhausted. Diet Coke.
Just
Diet
clarifying.
That's right. That's
Nothing
right.
in there.
Yeah.
Lord knows somebody will try to clip that.
Right. No. So how about to then, so those feelings of, people that are feeling resentment or feeling rejected or disregarded. I know that I started taking those cues the wrong way, and we discussed that a little bit, but back when I felt as though our romance side of things was not as hot as I wanted it to be. And I think we've really kind of uncovered a lot about that. And we may not get to all that on this episode. We'll definitely cover it, jump into that right on the next episode. But back, in 2012, 13, I thought, well, perhaps she needs, she's not that attracted to me because I'm kind of bald and fat, and I can control one of those things. And so, and I know we talked about this already, but, I started trying to fix my body. And as I got in better and better shape, things didn't necessarily change. And so then I took that internally, and I recently heard Jordan Peterson speak of rejection. When a man is rejected by a woman, it triggers all of his shame. It triggers him to feel all of the shame that he feels for himself, for his inadequacies, for him not becoming everything that he thought he could have become, or everything. I mean, in your life when you've sold yourself short, right? And you have shame on that because
I can confirm this.
Yeah. You felt that?
Oh yeah.
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 And which part are you confirming?
Just any sort of rejection, I immediately criticize myself rather than the situation of just she wasn't interested.
Right.
I went straight to beating myself up.
Yes.
Rather than just accepting it and moving on.
You know what? And it is so critical. It is critical to talk about it. Those hard conversations, you have to have those hard conversations, because I had no idea.
That's what I was going to ask you is, did you even know?
I had no idea that you were feeling that way. Right. And I was not just out to lunch in my own little world. Like, I really I thought we had a great dynamic in our marriage. I thought things were good. Certainly not perfect. No marriage is perfect, but I never thought that our dynamic was making you feel the way that it was. And
I think it was over time, but we did have some honest conversations about, okay, this is going to get deep for a minute. If it gets too deep, don't air it. And if you don't want to answer, don't. But I felt like there were lots of times in our marriage where we did discuss, we had obviously different sex drives. Mm-hmm. I'm like alpha male plus, and it wasn't meshing. And I did, again, take that internally. I took on shame, like I must not be good enough, and either it's technique or it's attraction, or it's my attitude or my emotions. There's a connection we're not getting. And I took that all internal as something I needed to try to fix on my own, but we never talked about it. Right. And you didn't even know I was feeling that way, but that went for years. And it was a problem because it made me susceptible to temptation, because and so that is something that needs to be addressed in a marriage, and you need to openly discuss it. But we would have a lot of discussions on this topic. It was generally not the most constructive setting for those discussions because it was when I felt rejected and I felt shamed and I was upset. Right.
Yeah.
And then, and then you talk about, hey, I want to be more intimate, or I want to have, sex more often, or
that's a really good point though.
I want you to be more forward. I want you to initiate it. I feel like anytime we were intimate was because I wanted to be, and then I had to talk you into it, and then I had to get you into the mood for it. And then we did it. And I was like, man, I almost felt like you really just didn't want to do it.
But speaking to that though, from my perspective, like, I don't know, you hear the whole thing, like the wife's got a headache and so she doesn't want to have sex, and excuses like that kind of thing. That was never me. And so in my mind, like, if you wanted to have sex, like, we would have sex. We had a lot of sex, and it was always great for me. Like, even if I wasn't
Can you say that again?
mood,
It was always
great for me.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So even if I wasn't good at it.
That is on record, baby.
Clip it.
That is in the World Wide Web, never to come off. There we go.
So even if I wasn't in the mood, I always got in the mood, and it was fabulous. So in my mind, I felt like I was being a good wife that way. Like, and we had a great sexual relationship that way. But part of, I think, a big reason why you felt the way you did was the foundation of how you felt about yourself before you even came into our marriage. Feeling inadequate, and where your self-esteem just was not the greatest, and feeling like you weren't heard or understood or valued, or these foundational things that you grew up with. And then,
or that I could be good enough.
Right. And so then when something like that comes in, your brain, the natural pathway is like making this connection of, she doesn't care, she doesn't want me, she doesn't,
well, and I
care
didn't
enough to come after me, kind of thing.
You're correct. And not only that, but I didn't always put that shame back on you. Sometimes that would come back to me. It's like, well, if I was good enough, right? Like you were saying, it wasn't always like she doesn't, not that you don't want me. It's just that, why would she want me? And this confirms the way she treated me, that she doesn't want me. I mean, because there were times like I was in the mood and trying to stimulate things. I'd leave out lingerie and you'd walk right by it. So I'm like, okay. And I took that as a sign there's something wrong with me and that you were rejecting me. Come to find out later through therapy, go to counseling again.
Oh my gosh, go to counseling.
But in therapy, we realized that had more to do with how you felt about your self-worth, and you really didn't feel. I remember you telling me one time you felt like I was just being a nice guy. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Do you remember what we were talking about?
So here's the dynamic that we went into our marriage with. Like, Lonnie and I have known each other our whole lives practically. Went to high school together. He was very popular. Football star, homecoming king, like all the things. Good guy that treated girls with respect, dated a lot. I was the girl that most of my senior year, I lunch in my car by myself. So my self-worth was not the greatest. I went to college and then that totally turned around. College was great for me, but I still had these emotional wounds that I had not healed, and self-esteem issues that way.
So can I ask real quick, when I would come home in a emotionally unregulated state, whether I was stressed or aggro or whatever, did that trigger that?
100%. Because for me, it just brought back all of my inadequate feelings, and it's got to be, he's upset with me. And I still struggle with that, not taking it personal. Like,
and that would be one of my critiques even at the time. Is like, when I'm trying to have a conversation about something I am bothered by, you would shut down. Yeah. Right. And it's because, and I didn't understand why.
Right.
I don't think you did either.
Yeah. And in your mind, it was like, well, she doesn't care. If she cared, she wouldn't shut down. She'd, be engaged in helping me work through this.
When in reality, I had triggered your inner shame.
Yeah.
And it was becoming unbearable to continue the conversation.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that.
So then it got super emotional. I would cry. You'd be upset that I was crying because
I would tell you, you're the world's worst fight ender. All you do is you start crying and I feel bad and you get your way and I'm just like, whatever to make you happy.
And then we really didn't get anywhere. That was the thought that I had earlier is it is important to talk about hard things when you're not in the moment of emotions. Like, if you're triggered
That's
one
fair.
night and something's really hurting you, talk about it the next day.
Well,
when you're not, when those emotions aren't so strong.
I agree. You want to tactically talk about how to not be in those situations better the next day, but in the moment, you still need to talk.
Oh, for sure.
So what do you talk about?
For sure, but that's where the grace comes in and understanding. Like, okay,
yeah, but if I'm triggered, I'm not in a grace mood, right?
Yeah, no, you're not.
So how do you help a triggered spouse through those moments? Like, how do you?
So kind of an internal conversation you need to have yourself is, what's your ultimate goal that you want for your marriage? And that's a real honest question you have to ask yourself. For me, I wanted to stay married, and that was my ultimate goal. And so even when things were hard, hard is kind of an understatement. It was hard. But
Mavis is here to come for you.
Yes.
Isn't that cute?
Yes, she's so cute.
Would she like to make a camera appearance?
I don't know. I don't want to pick her up wrong and then have Peter mad at me.
But just making sure that if that's your end goal, if that's really what you want, then you got to fight for it, and it's gonna hurt. It's gonna be hard. But just having that, I don't know, will to make it work. And some situations are different. Sometimes the relationship is so toxic that it might not be recoverable, and that's a real thing too. And
best to end the situation.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of factors that you need to responsibly consider before you hit the D button.
And really, like, oh my gosh, I think the biggest thing is find a good counselor that resonates with both of you, that is good, and start with that before you hit the eject button.
Hey, Meredith, I think it's a great time to kind of wrap this episode and then transition to a new one. But on that point of finding a good counselor, you got to find a counselor that's an advocate for you. And your wife needs the same. One of the most endearing things was when I went to my counselors, and independently, I didn't ask for this. Both of my best counselors that I've had have told me this on their own. Like, here, Lonnie, we are here to be your counselor. And if you decide that you want to stay married, we're going to support you in that. If you decide you want to get divorced, we're going to check you as hard as we can. But if ultimately we decide that that's what's best for your situation, and you've decided, and that's what's best for your situation, and through our professional help, we've done everything we can to mitigate that. We've done everything possible to try to prevent that situation, and yet we still think that's best, then we'll help you through that too. And that was really endearing for me because I felt like I had a true advocate that wasn't trying to push me or force me into a box again. You need to be in this box to be happy. You need to do these things to be happy. And I feel like we've had a lot of that programming in our life, just the way we grew up, is box checking and fitting into certain scenarios socially to be happy. And with this, I finally felt I had given myself an opportunity to really establish the life that I chose, and that I could really feel free in expressing myself in fully. And it gave me the opportunity to be vulnerable, because ultimately the idea was for us both to be happy and for us both to be in the best situation for each other. And also I didn't intend to get into divorce when we were talking about this topic at all, but I got to a place where the only way I could entertain that topic was knowing that Meredith felt that I loved her the way that I loved her, and that she knew that I would always have her back. And that if we just, in our relationship, we got to a point where we couldn't be together, I needed us to be in a healthy enough place as a couple that we both knew we would still support each other always. And we would help each other transition through those next steps as friends, because we've known each other 38 years, and all of a sudden we decide to hate each other. It just didn't resonate with me. And I know that a lot of the things we went through are very hard, and a lot of times our relationship enders. And I appreciate your patience and grace and us being able to work through those, love. I really do, because, like I said, that Instagram post, you really had to face the fire of hell and pull me out of there. But, don't be so quick to throw the word or the idea of divorce around. Have that be the absolute last resort. And, but do seek counseling, do seek professional help, and seek out other people. Seek out other people that, don't go to your friends and say, hey, my wife, blah, 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 what do you think? And they're probably the same kind of person you are and have just as bad of a dysfunctional marriage as you do. So they're going to be like, oh yeah, that lady, blah, blah, blah. And that's not what you need. What you need to do is surround yourself with people that have the situation you want, whether that's in business, whether that's in life, whether that's in leisure or in marriage, especially in marriage. Surround yourself. If you want to have a successful marriage, surround yourself with people that have successful marriages, and you'll drift towards that because of the way your brain picks up information and relays information consciously and subconsciously. And if you want to be around people that are successful, if you want to be successful yourself, you need to surround yourself with people that are successful. And it's the same is true in marriage as it is in anything else. You're going to be the sum total of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And so, at the time when we were going through the worst of our marriage problems, I was hanging out with my single friends a lot. And that wasn't a good thing. Not that they weren't good friends. They were good friends to me, but it's just I wasn't putting myself in the social situations I needed to be able to get the tools I needed to navigate those situations, because those people weren't in them. And so keys to think of. Anyways, we're out of time. Thanks for listening. See you next time.